I can't sleep. This is really beginning to kind of weigh on me. What's going on with these RP cards? So, I'm under orders to record everything, so gonna record. Got my brain food. So, I'm gonna just take one long look at this. Two problems thus far. Card number one, channel 1, has got no input. Feed tone into it, no reading, no sound, nothing. And channel 3 on the playback head is low, and yet going to the sync mode where it would read off of the record head is okay. Two different problems. So what I want to do is I want to basically just kind of run some tone through this and sort of trace it out, see where it disappears. So that said, it's interesting also that it thumps when you turn this on, because there is a mute function on here which is supposed to last about 2 seconds while things are charging up and capacitors are charging up, so forth like that. It's not supposed to thump. So these are just going to be observations. Just think and think and think and think, and it's just like, this is just not behaving the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to go ahead and start with tone. I'm going to run the balance over a little bit so that it's not going to be so loud, because channel 1 isn't working anyway. Trace some signals out of this thing. Pin 15, 13, 14, 15. So there's my signal coming in on tone, which in this particular case is 5.1. It's almost 2 volts peak to peak, just under, so about 1.8 maybe. The input is coming off of that edge connector, and it comes down here to that connector, which then travels off the board to the volume control on the front panel, and then returns. It returns right here, and then it goes one of two ways. It goes to a pot on the board itself, which is the input level control, just for the actual amplifier itself. Okay, but it also, because this section here, this whole section is for the record amplifier, so the signal also continues on, goes to this first op amp, and then begins to get amplified for the record mode. But I'm only interested in this continuation of this pot right here. Okay, that signal is supposed to be going to this MOSFET transistor. Now, I want to just take a look, going back to the pot on the board, and then that FET, that MOSFET transistor. That same signal should appear on this pot, so it does, and then coming off of that pot on the wiper is going to be feeding that MOSFET transistor, but it's not. Okay, so what's going on with that? There's no signal coming off of this pot. Somebody turned the pot all the way down. That's not supposed to be like that. Wow. So with the turned all the way down, the wiper is basically just held to ground. Well, I think I know now why they turned it down. You know what that sounds like? I'll tell you what that sounds like. Long time ago, we needed a tone generators, for testing cables, like on an outdoor PA system or something like that. You needed a portable, ready-made tone generator or a signal generator. I mean, you used to carry around transistor radio just to plug it into the system to see if you could check all of the input lines. Well, you used to be able to take, oh gosh, what was it? It's like I could be wrong on this, a 2N222 transistor. And if you took that single transistor with a 9-volt battery and a couple of coupling capacitors, you could build a noise generator. If you overbiased it, it was just like a white noise generator. Damn, that's what that sounds like. Okay, so I've switched to monitor mode, playback. Okay, that's record coming off of the record head. All right, playback. Okay, not record. Record's not there. Playback. Okay, so playback is there. All right, here's what I think is going on. That MOSFET transistor that's up there, that is blown. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me because this input is pretty much just raw. I mean, for example, if you inadvertently hooked up a speaker output, you know, something on the order of, I don't know, 10 watts, right? But if you hook that up thinking you could do that, that signal is going to be so hot that it's going to fry that MOSFET, because MOSFETs are incredibly sensitive. And the purpose of those MOSFETs up there are simply to turn on the audio for that particular mode. You've got your monitor, okay? The signal is coming in out of that monitor, all right? It's coming right off of the playhead, which is right back here, all right? But in the normal mode, the relay right here is actually going to be switching to the record head input. So that's what normal does. But the input right here, that is basically just getting that raw line input from the RCA jacks on the back of the deck and probably fried that thing. And now, because this voltage that is coming off of here, right here, this line coming in there, all right, is just a small DC voltage. I don't know, maybe 9, 10 volts, which is just turning that MOSFET on to let that signal through. If it's been damaged, which I fully believe that it is, it's going to generate noise like what we're hearing. Wow. Cheers. Oh, it's a hell of a storm. In fact, I'm just sort of walking that back and forth. You know what that is? That's a DC, because right now the wiper on that pot is basically at ground. But the moment that you add any kind of resistance to that from ground, it's going to say, oh, hey, I've got some DC for you. Here you go. Okay, well, I think with that knowledge, it would be a good idea to shut this off, okay? Because where that's tied to in that circuit, it could potentially damage the other MOSFETs that are there, but everything else was working in that regard, but we still have a low input coming off of track 3 of the playhead. Looking at this schematic again, let me point out a couple of things to you, because this is where it's going to get kind of interesting. All right, because what's going on here, this amplifier right here is doing a lot of the primary work. What's really interesting is that this amplifier right here is basically treating the audio from the playback head equal to the record head. And how it achieves that is right here on that particular wiper in relay K1, okay? This is relay K2 down here, all right? That relay is primarily for the record head, because you want to use the record head for playback? Fine. If you'll notice, the relay okay, notice that one of those contacts is basically filled in black and the other one is just a white circle. Okay, well, the black means that that's normally closed, which means that that's where the relay lives in a relaxed position. When these relays work in tandem, if you notice, the record head is already connected to the input up here, but oh well, doesn't go anywhere. Why? Because that relay up there is in playback mode, playback readiness, if you will. Okay, but when that relay right there, okay, when that relay switches, it's actually going to switch to the record head, and the record head will play through this same amplifier. All right. Now, there are some adjustments for EQ and things like that for differences between the record head and the play head. But honestly, what it's doing is pretty much the same thing for either head. And that's what I would come to expect. In fact, I'll just point out that both heads are going through this singular transformer. Either head, depending on the relay position, is going through that transformer and it's coupled into that amplifier. So if track 3 on the playback head is low and it plays back fine from the record head track 3, well, then what's the difference? What's changed? What's contributing to the low signal on that head? If the amplifier is getting the same signals, then the level should be the same, and it's not, and the record head plays back fine, the playback head does not on track 3, it would seem like it would be a gain issue because there's nothing else, there's no active components in front of that amplifier for the playback head to be different from the record head. These are just things that are occurring to me. I've got an idea, okay? I've got an idea, and that is going to involve taking a couple of resistance readings. Can't call them impedance readings because it's not really impedance. To my way of thinking, impedance is resistance to an alternating current. I'll just leave it at that. Feel free to correct me in the comments. The playback head for track number 3 is right here. This RCA connector connected to this board is basically, it's hot wired. It literally just disappears back there and comes out right up here to the heads. There's no other active components involved between here and here. What I want to do is take a reading from track 3 of the playback head. I just want to see what the impedance is. I mean, it's as if something's partially shorting it out. All right. So I'd like to rule out that possibility. All right. Now, in my experience, I've never found in a tape recorder where a head has gone bad. I'm kind of in speculation mode. But as far as the head is concerned, if I were to desolder these leads, then the head is basically just a floating coil. All right. So what I want to do is look at the resistance of track 3, just to get a starting point. All right, I'd expect that for a coil. 14.5, 14.6 ohms. Let's compare that, since we can, to, let's say, track 4. It's right next door. Whoa, 28 ohms. Okay, interesting. 15 on track 3, 28 on track 4, track 5. Dollars to donuts, it's going to be the same as 4. Okay. Again, the RCA connectors on this board for the playhead are it's a home run to the head stack. 4 and 5 are 28. See if I can get track 2 out of here. Actually, you know what? Track 1 is just hanging out here. Let's just look at track 1 right now. 28.5. All right, one more time. I'm going back to track 3. Make sure that all things being equal, wow. My initial report will find that track 3 of that head is bad. How does that even happen? All right, well, think about it for a second. I suppose if somebody were degaussing the heads using an AC powered degausser, that did it somehow blow out the coil in the head? Wow. So to put the shopping list together, I'm going to be needing a 2N5462 MOSFET transistor. And it looks like I'm going to need a replacement playback head for a TEAC 80-8 from 1980. So when we talk again, we're going to discuss deal breaker territory.